Welcome to In Her Voice. My name is Kelly Covert, and I am passionate about helping women live authentically by listening to their inner voice. Get ready to be inspired by women of all walks of life that have set aside their should-bes and not good enoughs and are standing in their true voice, the voice of wisdom that each and every one of us has inside. Hello, you guys. This is Kelly, and I am so thankful that you are listening to In Her Voice today. Oh my gosh, I kind of paused there because as I was saying thankful, I realized that we're in the most thankful month, the month of November. And I don't know, you know what I think I just feel like in this moment really drawn to do is to share some gratitude, share my gratitude with you guys for showing up every week, for listening. I have so much gratitude for the guests who come on the show, who share their hearts and their wisdom with all of us. And I have so much gratitude for my own inner voice that gives me ideas and gives me topics and just leads me. I'm just grateful, and I would love for you to share your gratitude too. So if you're feeling drawn, shoot me a message, connect with me on Instagram, maybe take a screenshot of whatever episode you're listening to and share your gratitude also. And I'm not talking about gratitude for me either, just gratitude in general. It really can change your perspective in a heartbeat, and it's so amazing. So let's just take some time to do that. I have an amazing guest with me today, Philo, and she is talking about how to be seen. And this is a really interesting conversation because a lot of times as women, we have resistance to showing up, to being seen, and to doing things like video or Instagram stories or Instagram Live or things like that. And here's the thing, if you have or are considering having your own business, video is so important these days. So Kayla shares a lot about how to get into the right mindset for that, and also some of the practical tips of how to do a good job with your video, and also how to just really use it to your advantage. Let me just read you her bio real quick. She's super interesting, you guys. Philo is a marketing video strategist for women who are the face of their brand and business. A marketing video producer for over 15 years, Kayla founded The Ultimate System for Fab Videos, Finally Done, to teach clients a powerful, simple system to create and leverage smartphone videos and transform their marketing and engagement. She believes that the rise of online video is nothing short of a revolution, and she is passionate about simplifying video to empower thousands of women to develop confidence and mirror their unique brilliance on video. A few years ago, Kayla fulfilled a lifelong dream of downsizing to free up time and resources to travel solo for 18 months while building her online business. Still an avid traveler, today, Kayla uses Mexico City as her home base in between trips. A gifted writer, Kayla also co-produces the slow travel lifestyle blog La Vida with Wings with her Mexican partner, Sergio Zavala. And you guys are just going to fall in love with Kayla. She's just so down to earth and so easy to listen to. I really loved what she said about being seen. And, if you think, well, gosh, I don't have a business, I don't think that this really applies to me, I would ask you just to stick with it for a little bit, because I think that any of us who are called to service, no matter what that looks like, maybe that's service in your church, maybe that's service in a nonprofit, maybe that's serving your community or your kids' school or mothers around your neighborhood or whatever, or your family even. If you are called to service, video can help you, and you need to understand how important it is for you to be brave enough to be seen. So definitely take a listen and enjoy this interview with Kayla. Philo, welcome to In Her Voice. I'm so excited to share you with my listeners today.
Well, thank you, Kelly. I'm honored to be here and to talk with you a little bit.
Yes, likewise. And I love that what we're really going to be talking about is an area of your expertise, which is teaching entrepreneurs how to use video to help their business. But when I really dig into that topic in my own mind, I think it's so much about being seen and allowing yourself to be seen. So what I want to start with you today is, how do you see yourself?
How do I see myself? That's a great question because it's changed quite a bit over the last couple of years, and it gets into a lot of the reasons why I do the work that I do. So, about 4 years ago, I left the nest really empty. I had just gone through a divorce, a long-term marriage to a very nice man, but we decided to part ways. Great dad, but we parted ways, and my daughter graduated from high school, and I have always had a serious case of wanderlust. So I thought, what is the biggest field trip that I can think of for myself? So I sold or donated everything that wouldn't fit into my Honda CRV, and I gave up my lease, and I took off. I traveled the US and Mexico solo for about 2 years. I did some house sitting off and on. And in that time, I also worked to build my career of location independent business that, so I could work from wherever I wanted to that had an internet connection. So I see myself as someone who has stripped away everything that I had almost in order to see what I wanted to bring back. And from that process, I'm now more of me, I think, than I've ever been. And I just turned 55, and I think it's pretty awesome to be able to say that.
Yeah, I bet that does feel really good. And, I'm curious, and usually when I'm curious, I'm not the only one who's curious. What did your life look like before you stripped everything away?
Well, I've always been a minimalist. I've never wanted or, liked a lot of stuff. But, we were a typical American family with 2 kids and a house and a long-term marriage. And so you end up with quite a few things at the end of all that. So I think it was more just a sense of a possibility. I felt like even when my kids were younger, I felt like we were very tied to a traditional, Monday through Friday schedule. And I think I've always sort of had an entrepreneurial approach to life that made it difficult, for me to, I don't know, say the only time we can go on vacation is during August, or it just is kind of a restrictive way to live, to be honest. And I understand the value of it because that's how you build a career in some ways. But I think that's how my life felt. It felt more, I'm sure it was more stable, but it felt more restrictive back then. And now I'm working harder, unquote, than I used to. I'm working more hours, but it's on my own time. It's on my own business. And quite honestly, the nice thing about empty nest syndrome is that your time is your own, and you can do a lot with it.
Yeah, I find that really inspiring. I'm 44, and my oldest is in 10th grade. And I think to myself, and my youngest is in 7th grade, like, that's not that far away for me. And when you're in the thick of it, it's hard to remember that. But I just love the idea of being able to try on something new and to change it up and to have the courage to do that. So how did you find that courage? That's selling and donating everything is a kind of a drastic thing. How did you find the courage to step into that? Or were you scared out of your mind?
Both. So, what is that saying? Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's taking action because when you are afraid. And so I think this blends in with what your topic of being seen is too. I firmly believe that every person is called to take a journey. That's what our life is. We put lots of routine and stability in place to try to make it feel, quote, secure, and like we're not on a journey, but we really are. And so I was literally called to take that, kind of like a literal journey. That's been my vehicle. Not everyone has to sell everything they own and go on a trip, but that's been my vehicle for finding what I'm here to birth. And it segues really well with my work, which was another goal of mine, was to feel like, my work was part of my life and I wasn't just living for the weekends. I'd never liked that feeling. And I always wanted to feel like my work was part of my entire flow of a joyful, full of joy life. And my work is in helping women create, practically speaking, create and leverage smartphone videos. But what we're really doing there is we are being seen and we're finding our voice in a huge way. And there is a tremendous wave of entrepreneurship among women online right now. And then the next wave that's coming is the video. So we're seeing these two waves come crashing onto the business landscape and the society landscape. And I think it's something that if you're not like working online in online space, I don't know that everybody's really seeing it quite yet, but it's rewriting the way business gets done and also how women are voice in the business world and in society in a very revolutionary way. One example is entrepreneurship among African American women. Women of color are starting businesses more than they ever have in the past, and at rates way higher than any other group. And it's because they've been able to find each other and leverage resources and accountability and training and coaching all online. Mm-hmm. So it's been awesome.
It is awesome. And I think like we're living in this age of such great opportunity at a low cost, really. At this point, it's really like, do you have a smartphone, which most people do? Mm-hmm. Then you have access to these tools that can really push your business forward. Mm-hmm. And I'm really curious how this career chose you. How did you choose it? Did it choose you? You said you were called to go on a literal journey, but how did the career piece evolve for you?
Well, that evolved actually more sort of in a logical way than the whole like selling everything and driving away into the sunset, because I was a marketing video producer for about 15 years. My degree is in marketing. And then I'm kind of an internet grandma. I did websites when my kids were younger because I wanted flex time to be able to, hang out with them and then also work from home. So I started out doing consulting and design and marketing consulting on websites. And then when video became a possibility, I experimented with it. And the first time I opened iMovie, I was like, oh my God, this is how my brain works. So I'm very right brain, left brain, both sides. And if one side gets more attention than the other, they start to fight. So I had to find something that was technical and creative. And so video was definitely the answer. But I came to video from a marketing background, which is a good differentiating thing that's important to my clients. So that's how I got into, I produced and I shot and I did it all for several years. And then when I went on the road, I was editing part-time because that was something that was portable. I could edit, from anywhere with an internet connection. And now I've created this program because I want to, because there's a need for it, number one, and it's also a huge opportunity. You mentioned everybody has a smartphone. And that's true. And I think I'd like to introduce that, if we're nervous about being on camera or nervous about taking on video, one technique is to step back and realize that there are literally a billion women who have the same heart and fire and desire and ambition that you have it, but they don't necessarily have the opportunity to throw up, some video on Facebook Live or create a website and a YouTube channel and really leverage that. It's coming. They will soon. But right now, it is a window in time. And so many women are not taking advantage of it. And I think starting to reframe what it really means, it could be helpful in getting past those, let me just say, more ego-driven, nervous, camera anxiety and how do I look? And it's very natural. there's reasons for that too. But
yeah, this is so fascinating to me because it brings up so many questions. Number one, why do so many women not want to have themselves be seen? Like, and I have this even with podcasting, right? Where people are like, oh, I don't like the sound of my voice, or I don't have anything to say, which I think is never true. Like, everyone has a story to tell that can be of service to others. Why do women, and this is obviously a generalization, but why are they so nervous about that?
Well, there are some very logical reasons for it. And number one, it tends to be a little bit generational. The younger women, or, like my daughter's 22 and she grew up, taking a selfie a day, and they're just way more matter of fact about how they look on camera because they've been seeing themselves on camera their whole life. So that's, but those of us who are not 22 and didn't grow up on YouTube with our cat or our dog. So there's a couple different levels. Our resistance to being seen it's genetic. When we were cave women on the tundra, way back in the day, we were the ones most likely, that were had the babies around the campfire. We'd had the gardens around the cave or whatever, and it was not a good idea to be seen because you might get eaten for lunch. And now that's oversimplifying it, but that is the source of stage fright. Is if you're standing out in a crowd, then you are a target. Our animal or our reptile brain tells us that.
You're vulnerable.
So yeah, exactly. So right there it's saying, get down, literally. And men suffer from that too. But I believe they have a more, they had to pick up the spear and go kill something or nobody was going to eat that night. So they've got a more, let's just go do this attitude sometimes, where women are like, I want to hide so that's one piece of it. I need to hide to be safe. Safety is hiding. The second piece is, I can't remember the exact statistic, but by the time a girl turns 16, she's probably seen, 300 million images. There's a stat out there, but images of what you're supposed to look like. So we're inundated from the time we're young with images of female perfection, female sexuality, and we compare ourselves. You almost cannot help but not do it. Compare yourself against that when you see yourself in the mirror or on camera. So, you bring that to this genetic thing that tells you to run and hide, and it's not a super helpful dynamic. So it's two things. It's genes and socialization. Now,
and I think both of those make a lot of sense. And you know what I find super encouraging? At least, we can't really change the genetic aspect of it, and the best way to change that programming is to create new programming, right?
Exactly.
To do the thing and prove to our reptile brain that, hey, I did it and I'm still safe. Hey, I did it and I'm still living. I'm still here. And it seems so silly, like we know we're not going to die. But it feels really, really scary. Like that's a real fear. And the more you do it, the easier it gets.
Exactly. It really is true. It's kind of like riding a bike. It does get much easier the more you do it, to the point where eventually it's fun. A lot of women now, not everybody, but most women get to the point where if they do it enough, they find their voice. And the other thing is the feedback that you get is very rarely negative when you're being your authentic self. Now my what is it, like situation or context is the internet, a YouTube channel, let's say, or a Facebook live meeting or videos on Instagram. So you are presenting your valuable content, your authentic self to your audience, and the feedback is generally very positive and reaffirming, so women think, oh, well, this isn't so bad after all, and then they do more of it. The other thing is if you're in business online, there is then everyone knows there's this know, trust, and like factor. And what better way, than having coffee with somebody, can you establish being known, trusted, and liked than with a video? So I think once women start to see the power of that as well, it helps them see, get beyond their fears. To get beyond our fears, we always have to have a vision. So like when I sold and donated everything, I had a vision of where I was going first, and it really helped me pull me through that hard time. And so that's what you need anytime you're doing something that's scary. Another thing that really helped me the other day as a mindset coach, he said, the bravery that you're looking for in a situation comes after you complete the act that you were afraid of in the first place. And I thought, oh my God, that's so true. Does that make sense to you?
Totally. 100%. And I love this idea that often it's only in looking back that we're like, oh wow, I was really courageous.
Exactly.
Like, we don't necessarily feel it in the moment. That doesn't mean it's not there.
Exactly.
That's really good. That's really good. And you know what else I find encouraging about what you said is, I feel like the images, at least the images that I see, and I have to say, I am vigilant about the images that I let into my brain these days.
Mm-hmm.
I read text only politics because I don't want images.
Mm-hmm.
And likewise on social media, I am really, really careful. I don't want to see pictures of before and afters. I don't want to see pictures of people glorifying like the one way to look or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at the mall the other day and I walked into the Athleta store, which it's new in my mall. And it was the first time I had been. And I was so encouraged to see pictures on their walls of real women. Not just like toned, buff, skinny, like of athletic women who were larger, of women who were all shapes and sizes. Like, I was like, yeah, we need more of this. And I was also like, oh, wow, this is different.
Right. And that is part of the good fallout of the selfie generation, because they're the ones that are pushing that. My daughter just sent me a link to a small brand. She's very into fashion. Sent me a link to a small brand, some bathing suits. I'm going to meet her in Tulum for around Christmas time this year in Mexico. Anyway, so she sent me a link. She said, "Oh, Mom, do you think this is cute?" And these were girl models with no makeup, not like super hot traditionally, and it's almost with a certain sector of them, it's almost like they don't want to see any more of that airbrush perfection. They don't respect it. They want to see the real girl because that's who they're connecting with. And so I think it's being it's being pushed, upwards a little bit, even to corporations like Athleta. So good for you. Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah, I loved it. So let's talk about privilege, because you mentioned that briefly. And I think that that's an interesting topic to me when it comes to being seen. Because what I hear you saying is not every woman has access to what those of us who are listening to you today have access to. And that there's almost a sense, to me anyway, of responsibility to say, this is what it looks like to be an authentic woman. This is who we can be. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yes, I feel that way. I can't say that everybody should feel that way, but I do feel that way. I have had a very easy life, and especially on a global standard, and I feel like it is my responsibility to push on the fruits of that, the gifts of that, and take some extra risk, to be honest, which I am, though I have been the last 4 years. I mean, I don't have a trust fund. I don't get alimony. I'm spending my savings building this business. But that's one way that travel really helps me, is it shows me that, my fears on a relative level, I mean, just my freedom of action on a relative level is so much broader than most women on the planet. And travel really brings that home in a way. I mean, I knew that, or I tell myself that when I lived in the U.S., but, and I say this with all love, the U.S. is a very sheltered place to live, and it's awesome. I mean, I miss it sometimes, but being out of that and living in a country that is more in a developing phase, Mexico is first world, but they have a lot of problems with poverty still. And like most of the rest of the world is, except for, the industrialized countries. At any rate, yes, I do think that for me, I definitely feel a responsibility. And then I interviewed another coach who is doing well with video. Her name is Patty Lennon. And she said at the end, I always say, is there something you'd like to add to somebody who might be thinking about doing video? And she said, actually, yes. She goes, if there's a lot of people out there right now that have microphones and are doing video and being heard and being seen and using their voice. And she said, if you don't like what you're hearing and seeing from them and you're not stepping out and with your own authentic voice, she said, then maybe that's she was stronger about it. She said, then that's your problem. I'm going to say maybe that's something you could think about as a response instead of just, sharing memes and stuff on Facebook, just getting more and more frustrated and having that energy in you that doesn't have anywhere to go. Do a YouTube channel. Kelly, I think we're going to be looking at a time when having a YouTube channel is going to be extremely common, whether you're in business or not. Yeah. Because it's such a powerful way to communicate.
Yeah, I love this. And, it's funny to me because I'm familiar with Patty because a local friend of mine works with her and has shared some of, and so that's just an interesting small world connection.
Wow.
But what I think is where I would like to go is, what about the women who are listening to this and say, but there's so many people who are already putting their stuff out there. Why do I want to add one more thing to that?
That's an interesting perspective because I would say that is true. There are a lot of women online now building businesses online. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram, but very few of them in reality are doing video in a really effective way. In fact, some marketing firms aren't. I was just, there was an article yesterday in Forbes that I was looking at talking about, the future of marketing and coaching. And I went and I looked at some of the stuff, the websites of some of the people that were quoted in there. And there was 15 different and only 2 of them had video. And one of them was like a big time marketing company. I thought, if I was looking for marketing consulting right now and you don't have a video on your homepage, that's just not acceptable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a huge opportunity actually for the women I really like to serve. And this comes from supporting women entrepreneurs my whole life and being interested in it. And that are the women who are the face of their business. And there's a huge opportunity right now because so many of you are not doing it.
Yeah.
And for reasons I don't have to get into, but for search engine, and Google will favor your website over, maybe a website of a more prominent unquote person because you have relevant video on your website. And I've seen it, that you'll see a website that gets a first page return on Google and you'll think, well, why did that one pop up? Oh, they have a video. Because Google owns YouTube and favors video. And the reason they do that is because our brains are wired to be attracted to motion, and then you add sound to that, and you add people's faces to that, and we're mesmerized. So that's the reason. Yeah.
Makes me feel like I need a video on my homepage.
You absolutely do. You do.
Raise his hand and says, I don't have that yet.
Well, right. And the interesting about podcast hosts is they have to say, oh, podcasting is my thing. I don't want to get into video. And I can understand that we have limited resources. We don't want to take on everything in the world. But the cool thing about podcasting is you already have an audience that's identifying with you. Now, the next thing is they want to see you.
Yeah.
So we're seeing more podcasts. They're actually doing, they're videoing the podcast, or they're doing the podcast on Zoom or something, and so that you can watch the podcast if you want. But then they have that anyway. Yeah.
So it's so fascinating to me. So let's get into with the few minutes that we have left, sort of the practical side of this. So say a woman is listening to this and they're like, you know what? Yeah, I do have something to say. I'm tired of just putting another meme up there or, another complaint about something. I want to take action. What is the best way to get started?
Well, first of all, you'd want to determine sort of your 6 month, you'd want to think about what is your overall goal. If it's, to be an activist, that's one thing. If it's to build a business, that's different, because if you wanted to get into activism, then you're going to want to find your tribe first of all, and develop your voice through interacting with other people who feel the same way. Because, and I haven't, it's an interesting question because I haven't really worked with activists on video because it's kind of a different specialty. My focus is more with women who are building businesses, a lot of coaches and consultants mostly. Mm-hmm. And for that reason, or the first thing you'd want to do with that is decide what problem are you solving for your audience and start to do content around that, around their pain points, around what helps them, educational kind of things. And, doing video is different for different people. And that's why I do offer a video clarity session, because it also helps them figure out where their resistance is. It in being seen on camera, or is it just they're okay with that, but they're not a techie kind of person? Because that's the other piece of this. There's two pieces. There's the internal resistance to being on camera or being seen, and then there's also just fear around, I don't know what to use, I don't know how to do this, it's a new skill set. And if we can figure out which one is really in the way, it's a lot easier to diagnose and get moving.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Well, I love these. And if people wanted to reach out to you to schedule the session that you were talking about, or to use any of the resources that you have out there in the world, I'm guessing you have videos on your website, Kayla.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm excited to go watch some of them. How can people connect with you online?
Yeah, so now is actually a really good time, because my business is about a year old and we are getting ready to roll some new things out next year. But for right now, it's Fab Videos Finally Done, FAB Videos Finally Done. And I know it's kind of long, but I just got to own it. So the website is Fab, as in fabulous, Fab Videos Finally Done. And on the homepage there's a little video that is kind of a welcome, and it talks about the video clarity session, and there's a little button you can push and set that up if that's of interest. There's also a mini series, kind of the 3 smart starts, 3 keys to getting started on video, that's available there, and it's a video mini series. You can binge watch it in about 7 minutes. That's why we call it a mini series. And there's a big old video about, kind of why video is important. So yeah, I mean, one thing I'm playing with on my website is can I videofy this website and have actually more video and less text?
Interesting.
And yeah, it is interesting. And so there's also a description page of the program, the Ultimate System for Fab Videos, which is our program that teaches women how to do this. And I've created instead of like little chat boxes, I've created little videos of myself walking people through the information. And it's gotten really good feedback, because it gives people a chance to also see it written, but also be walked through it.
Yeah. And I think this really speaks to how different people learn in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so really having different ways for people to access what you're putting out into the world is really important to expand your reach and to expand ultimately your impact.
Yes, that's true. And you're right. Although the statistics say that the vast majority it depends on your audience, but the vast majority of people are visual learners. Mm-hmm. And so you can't really go wrong by and there's also a graphic out there that shows what parts of your brain light up when you're watching a visual thing versus reading something.
Oh.
And with data, there's like 2 places in your brain that light up. But when you're watching something visual, it's like 8.
Oh, wow.
I should send it to you. It's really interesting.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Mm-hmm. Well, we will link to your website and all of the wonderful things that you're offering on the show notes, as well as on the app you're listening to. So wherever you guys are listening, you can look at the little show info, and there will be live links right there to take you to all of Kayla's beautiful videos and materials that she has on her website. So Kayla, I have a feeling that this is going to be an interesting question, because clearly you are someone who heeds her inner voice. I mean, you picked up and you sold everything you had and you moved to Mexico. That's listening. That's really listening. So in your life right now, what is your inner voice saying to you?
It's saying keep going. It's saying I'm on the right track. It's saying everything that I want to have, manifesting in my life is already out there. I just have to, keep going to get there. There's a great book out called The Messy Middle, and it's written by one of the founders of Behance. He works for Adobe now, and he talks about there's so much glitz about the startup of the beginning of your company, and then of course there's all the stories about the end, not the end, but the success stories. He said when you're in the middle, it's messy, and it's a really great book. But anyway, I'm in the middle. I'm in the messy middle, and I'm celebrating it, and I'm learning a lot every day. But that's what my voice is telling me, is just keep going, be consistent. And I want to mirror this to you and your listeners. There are people out there, women who need what you have and what you're offering. Your job is just to attract them and serve them with your content and your voice and being seen.
Yeah, all of those. Oh, Kayla, it's so good. And I love this message of keep going. I mean, that's for wherever you are on whatever part of your journey, right? Mm-hmm. That's such a good message, because there's always a continuation of that. Like, I feel like we are never done. And so keep going is such a wonderful, heartfelt sentiments to me.
Yes. And I wanted to say too that, what you said about guarding your visuals, I think that's very smart in this day and age. There is negativity right around every corner, right a click away online. And I think we have to just really be very vigilant about it now, for ourselves and for our families. And also, I think that's one reason why the Wonder Woman movie was so very popular. I mean, I read things about women crying when they went to see that movie. And I think it's because, like, she's epitomizing positivity, positive energy, female energy, and she's totally standing up and being seen. So we need to kind of lift ourselves up with those kind of images. And I think that you're really smart in kind of guarding for the other.
Yeah. Thank you, Kayla. What a wonderful message. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your wisdom and your heart with us today. I really appreciate you.
Oh, well, I appreciate you and the stories that you are able to bring out to the wider audience. Is so helpful. But then thank you. I'm honored to be a part of your list.
Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you for taking a listen to today's episode. You can always go back and get caught up on any episodes that you've missed. You just go back into your podcast app that you're listening to, and all of the episodes are there. I have some really great ones in the files back there, way back when, and they never get old. So I encourage you to go take a listen. And if you love this podcast, if you love listening to In Her Voice and the guests that I share with you and my solo episodes, it would mean the world for me if you let me know and share on your Instagram, share on your social media. Let me know what you're loving about In Her Voice, because it is such an encouragement to me week after week when I sit down to create an episode for you. When I get those little messages, it just motivates me. It gives me the energy to keep going. And I really, really appreciate it. As always, I want to remind you that you are so important. We need you being brave enough to be seen in this world, to be seen for your gifts, for your talents, for what you were born to do and be in this world. You are worthy.